Hello, everyone, and welcome to Snap Take. This is Glazer of Snap Judgments, the official podcast of Marvel Snap Zone. What we have for you today is, as always, 4 amazing decks, including the #1 deck on the Infinite Leaderboard. This is a deck that you're not going to find anywhere but here on the channel, along with some other decks from really top players that I think you'll find a lot of fun with. But as is tradition on New Card Day, we have the deck that I'm going to begin trying out the new card with. My Scarlet Spider deck is going to be built around using Gwenpool and Mysterio. Gwenpool hitting Scarlet Spider once makes that a 4/14. Hitting twice makes it a 4/18. That's incredible value, right? Gwenpool obviously also works incredibly with Mysterio, giving that a ton of extra power. And when we combine those cards, we realize we want Mockingbird in the deck as a way to go even further, to go even higher in power. In fact, if I can get a Gwenpool on a Hope Summers, I can play both Scarlet Spider and Mysterio, which is going to give me access to a really cheap Sasquatch, a Mockingbird to end the game, cards like Juggernaut and Shang-Chi as well, which feels like it's an incredibly powerful way to go about playing Marvel Snap. So that's where I'm going to start with Scarlet Spider. This deck is going to need Kitty, Thena, Gwenpool, and Mockingbird. I'm actually going to go back a little bit on that. I think you can probably do without Thena in this list. Any other good 2 should fit here. I'm partial to Kate Bishop. Kate Bishop has incredible synergy with Thena. She gives you extra cards for Mockingbird. The problem with Kate Bishop is, in an ideal curve, you don't want to play her, right? Because you don't want a bunch of arrows taking your Gwenpool buffs that you're trying to get on priority targets. So you can figure out what 2 you would like there. Maybe Nocturne makes sense. Maybe White Widow makes sense to put in that spot as a way to sort of fill out the curve. Thena is very important here, don't get it wrong, but she's not a requirement. Kitty, Mockingbird, Gwenpool are absolutely requirements. You need those for this deck to make sense. Sasquatch can be Iron Man here. I know it's a weird change, but we're just looking for extra value from Gwenpool, and hitting Iron Man even once with Gwenpool. Again, Iron Man's doubling each hit, much like Scarlet Spider's. So Iron Man getting hit once is now a 4-power Iron Man, which obviously has a lot more value than a 0-power Iron Man. Jeff can be Kate or Nightcrawler. I would start with Nightcrawler here, especially if I had Thena. And Scarlet Spider can be Copycat, Nocturne, or Captain Marvel. This deck existed long before Scarlet Spider. I just think Scarlet Spider is a really nice extra synergy piece here for it. Alright, so we're going to try to bring this back. This was the old vanilla deck. I found this deck ages ago on Untapped, or a version of this deck ages ago on Untapped. It was the highest win rate thing I could find. And I know almost all the top players on the Infinite Leaderboard, and no one claimed this deck. So it just sort of floated around as the vanilla Thena deck. Well, I think it might be back with this new card. This is what as far as I can tell, I think going to be the best home for Scarlet Spider right now. Turn 1, you'd like to play Kitty. Turn 2, Angela over Thena. And the reason you're going Angela over Thena is because in the ideal curve, you're playing either more than 2 cards a turn, or for at least the next several turns, you're only playing 2 cards. So you can do that just fine on Angela. So turn 3, you'd like to go Hope. If you don't have Hope, you want to go 2+1, with 1 being Thena. You're fine dropping a Jeff here. Turn 4, Gwenpool is a key card. If you've got Gwenpool and the right stuff in hand, it's a snap condition. If not, you're fine just dropping Scarlet Spider. There's nothing wrong with having a 4/10 in power, especially because you can then trigger that on turn 5, and if you're triggering that on turn 5, that's making your Mockingbird cost 1 less. Turn 5, you'd very much like to play Mysterio plus a 2 plus a 1, or Mysterio plus Scarlet Spider. That's your goal, and then if you can do that, you're going Sasquatch, Mockingbird, or along with Shang Juggernaut. So like you're playing Sasquatch or Mockingbird with Shang or Juggernaut. You're usually not playing all of it, but that's perfectly fine. There's an alternate play line where on turn 2 you just drop that Mysterio, and then turn 3 you go Sasquatch. That's perfectly fine as well, especially if you can still go Gwenpool, Scarlet Spider to end the next couple turns. Mockingbird will still cost 3 to end the game, a card you can play just fine with your Juggernaut at that point. All good. Hopefully this deck makes sense. I think this is going to be an extremely powerful thing to do. The question remains if it's got enough really to compete with Hela, but I don't think it's that far from being that powerful, so I think that it is worth checking out and testing. If it is not enough power, we're going to have to go and add Iron Man, and then I'm not sure what else we have to tweak in the list. The list will change at that point. We're going to take one last look at this. I'm going to chat with you for a minute, and then we're going to look at the current #1 ranked deck. So this is, again, where I'm starting with Scarlet Spider. Shang-Chi is my, Hela concession at this point. It is worth noting, however, that Shang-Chi could be Cosmo in this list, and if you're adding Cosmo in the list, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get priority, and then you're trying to Juggernaut the Hela into Cosmo to end the game, which is like a reasonable way to try and win as well, if that is your primary matchup of concern. Please hit that sub button if you're willing. We're trying very, very hard to get to 15,000 subs, and we're getting closer and closer. Like, it looks like we might actually make it. It just seems amazing to me. 15,000 subs by the end of 2024. If you can help us get there, we'd really appreciate it. We do 7 days a week of videos, 4 videos a day. If you want, it would really, really help us out if you hit that sub button. If you're willing to help us grow, liking and commenting go a long way. In addition, your comment enters you to win the Agent Venom Season Pass. We're giving away 5 Agent Venom Season Passes this week, 1 on every single video. So that one Agent Venom Season Pass. Sorry, let's explain this properly. Sorry, it's been a long work day. So what you do is you sub, you like the video. At some point in this video, I'm going to ask you a question. You answer that question in the comments, you're entered to win the Season Pass. Someone in the comments to this video will win the Season Pass. Someone in the comments to yesterday's video will win a Season Pass. Tomorrow's video, etc. You get the idea at this point? That is how you win a Season Pass. And if you're interested in the new Pokemon Pocket game, we have a channel called The Pocket Meta. It is out now. The game comes out October 30th, but we've got like our intro content out now, so please check it out. I'm making the content with my 8-year-old son, and I think it's really cool and really fun. We did like a quick 6-minute interview with him yesterday about what he feels about Pokemon. If you want to check that out, it's really cute, and I had a good time doing it, so hope you like it. All right, Derek doubles. This is the #1 deck on the Infinite Leaderboard. This one breaks my brain that it's so good, but when you realize what Derek is facing, it starts to make a lot more sense. A lot of the decks Derek is playing right now are, he says a lot of people are back on Wiccan decks that are trying to beat him with Alioth, and he's running into a lot of small move stuff that's running Cosmo. This list has a lot of answers to those cards and decks without having to do anything especially fancy in order to win. And I think that's where the power really is. If Move goes off, if Hella goes off, you're going to lose no matter what. You just run early on those matchups and lose. But against everything else, or if they stumble at all, this deck puts up so much power so consistently that it's able to take them out. This is a grinder's deck, right? This deck isn't going to dominate and wow you in every single game. There's games where you're just supposed to retreat early. But when you're not supposed to just retreat early, you just drop a bajillion power and the opponents can't do much about it, and you're doing it late enough so that your wins are really high cubes and your losses are really low cubes. And I think that's a very, very powerful thing to do in Marvel Snap right now. It's worth noting that Derek has been in the #1 spot on the Infinite Leaderboard basically the whole season after finishing #1 on the Infinite Leaderboard last season. So he changes what he plays basically once a week. Each week he plays a brand new deck. We get that brand new deck. We share it with you. That deck helps to set the expectations of the meta. This is a meta right now where you're trying to play around Alioth if you're ranking highly, and you're trying to play around losing to Cosmo. We're going to look at a deck after this that I really love that doesn't bother to do either of those things. Because if you're lower rank, and I'm about 1,1500 right now, 1,500, not 15,000. Cool. But and so I'm seeing less of that stuff, right? I'm seeing players that aren't as good with that stuff when I am, and so I'm able to counter them with a different type of counter. However, if you're looking to play into the meta to grind up, this is a wonderful place to start. All right, so Derek doesn't have 2 cards in his collection that would go in. Derek is actually not collection complete. He's largely a free-to-play player. Ant-Man would be Hydra Bob, and Nocturne would be Red Guardian, if possible. The Red Guardian change is very, very, very simple here. Red Guardian gives you an answer to Madam Web, which gives you a way to just beat Move. Red Guardian can just straight up beat a Mover's list, which is obviously a very valuable thing in this meta. Outside of that, Red Guardian could also hit Hellcow, but it's less likely to do so. So that's nice and simple, and Hydra Bob is just a better card than Ant-Man right now. If you have Hydra Bob and Ant-Man, unless you're running an ongoing specific list, you should probably just run Hydra Bob. Nocturne could also be Makari, Polaris, Copycat, or Gladiator, perfectly fine here. Makari could replace Wasp, but I don't like that because you want to be able to keep open the Hope Summers into Wasp immediate play. It's a very powerful thing to do when you can pull it off. Hope, Gwenpool, and Mockingbird are your required cards for this list. If you have those 3, you should be good to go. Please note, if you are a Season Pass purchaser, then 2 of those are recent-ish Season Pass cards. I guess Hope was March, which isn't so recent. So you should have access to these cards, assuming you buy the Season Pass, which is, as always, the best value in the game. While Mockingbird has been, I don't want to say the best card in Marvel Snap, but at worst, a top 5 card in Marvel Snap for the entirety of its existence. Alright, so again, this is an exclusive deck that you're not going to find anywhere else. It is ranked number 1 as Derek continues to build his lead against everyone else. If you check the Infinite Leaderboard, Derek is in the others section because the leaderboard is bugged and sometimes you have to go to each section to see where people are. And Derek is been up like 200 or 300 snap points all season. He just continues to expand his lead. Alright, turn 1, you want Sunspot or Quinjet over Ant-Man. If you have both Sunspot and Quinjet and Moon Girl, you're going to play both. But if you don't see Moon Girl, Quinjet doesn't really do anything, so I tend to get Sunspot down first. And that's generally what I do. Turn 2, Dazzler. And obviously, Sunspot and Quinjet are more important than Dazzler if you're going to end up Moon Girling. Turn 3, you want to play Hope over Nocturne. Turn 4, you want to play Moon Girl or Gwenpool, and this is a point of contention in the deck, a point of, not contention, tension in the deck. It depends where your powerful cards are. If you've got a small hand with Mysterio in hand, Gwenpool can often be better because you can get, if you can get a couple hits on Mysterio, right? You've got 4/4/8. That is a 16 power Mysterio. I mean, look, you just played a Doctor Doom for 2, right? All of a sudden, that makes that Gwenpool significantly better. Especially because if you have both at that point, you can Gwenpool, then Moon Girl, and then you can play Mysterio, a couple of those Mysterios, and you've just double Doctor Doomed, and you still have extra for Dazzler, and you're going to hit that Dazzler trigger at that point, right? If you can get the double She-Hulk, you really, really want to focus on Moon Girl. If you're going double Mockingbird, you can go Gwenpool into Moon Girl, right? So, like, there's a lot of different choices to make at that point. You have to look at your hand and consider. This is also the point where you fairly often want to dump Wasp, because you don't always, sometimes you'll want 2 Wasps, but usually you don't want 2 Wasps. Wasp is just here to make your hand easier to navigate for this Moon Girl or Gwenpool situation. Turn 5 is, generally speaking, Mysterio or Pass, and then turn 6 is She-Hulks and Mockingbirds. Although, remember that you can play Gwenpool and then Moon Girl as well as a play pattern here. Alright, this is the list. It's a grinder list. It's extremely strong and it's worth playing. Number 1 players, number 1 deck currently. We're going to take a look at a bundle right after this, and then we're going to look at the deck I've had most success with in the past several days. Second deck I've had second most success with. My most successful deck, by the way, still I talked about it in Friday's video. It's Gunny's 99 Problems, but arishem ain't 1. I've still got a 70% win rate with that, so that's my best list. This is another list I'm absolutely crushing with. However, this is the Saved Your Bacon bundle. This is a 192.7% value. For those of you who remember, 170% is a very good value, and anything above that I think is great value. 200 is must buy, or coming up on must buy, so this is pretty damn close to that. This also, however, if you don't have Spider-Ham, I think this is immediately must buy. Spider-Ham here being a Series 4 card that you just get. If you open this, you'll still have to open the original card eventually, but you can just play Spider-Ham by buying this bundle. You also get a Series 4 cards worth of tokens and a decent chunk of gold. Nothing fancy for gold, but a variant, right? Or something that you can put towards a larger bundle later. If you don't have Spider-Ham, I think this is must buy. If you do have Spider-Ham, if you have something you immediately want to use the tokens on, feel free. If not, this is something I'd probably wait on. For me personally, who has a lot of tokens and is more value in gold and credits, this is not a buy. If you are swimming in tokens, then it only makes so much sense to buy this. Next up, we have Barzi's Miracle, and I'm in love with this deck. If your meta is a bunch of Eliathan Cosmo, please do not play this list. Eliathan Cosmo will straight up break you in half. Your only hope of beating them, and I've beaten a few Cosmos. I don't think you could be, if they have both, you're dead. But your only real hope of beating them is if you get Phastos and then Gwenpool, or you can double Phastos or double Gwenpool, you can put up enough power that even like if they're stopping a bunch of it, you're just putting up enough numbers, right? Because like you're adding like 4, 6, 8 power to everything, and then all of a sudden it doesn't matter if all the triggers are happening. That's fundamentally how this works. However, this list is just really, really, really good, really strong. This is another. I think Gwenpool Mysterio is just like class of the meta stuff right now. This is the single best Phastos deck I've ever played. Period, bar none. Phastos feels incredible here. This is the best he's ever felt by a freaking ton. You can find Barzi at twitch.tv/Barzi. He streams at very strange times for me, so I haven't seen him stream in a little while. It makes me sad. Stupid school year starting. This list needs Hitmonkey, Sage, and Gwenpool. Yes, you do need all 3. Grandmaster and Phastos can be Hope, Zabu, Symbiote, Luke, and Mobius. And if you don't have Red Guardian, please run Rogue. I again think Fastos is excellent here. I'm pretty sure I don't actually want Grandmaster in this list. I'm debating what I would like to replace Grandmaster with, but I have not especially liked Grandmaster. I'm leaning towards Zabu as my replacement here, just because I can drop Zabu and do good things with Zabu later, as far as making my Absorbing Man cost 3 and then 2 with Sarah and stuff like that seems like a very powerful way to play. Alright, this is an absolute Cube Thief. This is a deck that, if you read an Goliath, please, for the love of God, run. But outside of, if you see a Goliath, you should just be able to absolutely wreck with it. I beat a Mobius with it because I just read Guardian the Mobius on 4 instead of playing my gwenpool. Like, this list is just crazy, crazy strong. So turn 1, you pass because you don't run ones. Turn 2 is Invisible Woman or pass, and that's the other reason I want Zabu, because it gives me another 2. Turn 3, Fastos is your goal, but you can also play a 3 behind Invisible Woman. If you see your opponent playing a bunch of 1s, they're like a Wiccan deck, they're going to play like a Hydra Bob, etc. Stashing a Killmonger makes sense. If you can just Red Guardian something just fine sometimes. You can also stash a Hitmonkey there. I tend to not want to stash a Sage, but if you stash a Hitmonkey behind Invisible Woman, then all of a sudden all the stuff you play on the last turn will still trigger Hitmonkey, which is obviously very strong. You can also conceivably stick a Shadow King just fine behind Invisible Woman, especially if your opponent has a clear scaler in that lane. I would rather just drop Fastos, though, because then I can either, whoopsie, wrong way. Then I can either Absorbing Man that Fastos, or I can stick my Absorbing Man behind Invisible Woman. If I can stick my Absorbing Man behind Invisible Woman, as long as I can make sure the last card I play is either Sage or Hitmonkey, we're going to town now, right? The other thing I could do is I can Grandmaster Fastos. I usually don't want to Grandmaster any of my other cards, but there's worse things to do than Grandmaster Red Guardian on turn 4. Turn 5, you really want Sarah, but this is where Grandmaster actually makes sense in the list, although, again, Zabu would be fine here. Grandmaster on Gwenpool and a 3, or Grandmaster on Fastos and a 3 is a very strong play here. So you can strongly consider either of those as a thing to do on turn 5 if you don't have Sarah. Sarah is a snap condition unless you suspect Goliath from the opponent. This list has, like, I beat the crap out of Hela. I had almost no problem with Hela here. You're just putting up 30 power in multiple lanes if you see Sarah and your other cards here. So turn 6 is everything. The key cards here are Monkey, Sage, and Mysterio, but you mix and match as necessary to win the game. Especially if you have Monkey already, you can just sort of go off and fill your whole board. This list is awesome. Play it, love it, you'll rock with it. Then we're going to look at one more sweet deck that has been specifically cracked in Conquest, and later today is Infinity Conquest, so this is one I want to offer you to try for Conquest. If you'd like to see gameplay for these decks, please check out the stream team. Today is Tuesday, so the great Prashaun, you can find at Prashaun Snap on both YouTube and on Twitch, will be streaming these decks. Gregor2424 should have a video at some point of yesterday's decks as well. Alright, this feels like a good time to do the question of the day. The question of the day is, now we've talked about, we've talked about 3 decks and we're about to talk about 4. Which of today's decks is your favorite and why? Which are you most interested in trying? Let me know in the comments for your chance to win Symbiote, not Symbiote Spider-Man, Agent Venom. Also, just for the record, you know what card would be really cool in this list, although you'd have to cut Ravonna? Agent Venom. This seems like a really cool Agent Venom style home. A deck like this that doesn't want Ravonna could be very good. This list is so strong, but its consistency is weird. Not broken, not bad, but weird. So, like, you need to see fundamentally to win. You can go, you need Ravonna if you're going to do Iron Man Mystique, right? And then you need a little bit of your move package. And then you need, or you need Madame Web and Mystique. And you can win either which way, but they're both, like, the key cards to the list. Alright, so you can find twitch.tv/JohnPool to watch John Pool play some Marvel Snap. This deck needs Madame Web and Ravonna. Ghost Spider can be Aranya. In fact, either Ghost Spider or Iron Fist, I'm pretty sure, should be Aranya. I'm not sure which, but I really do want Aranya. I might end up cutting Craven. We'll see. Iron Lad can be Symbiote Spidey, Jubilee, or Gladiator. Iron Lad is, again, good here. You're trying to hit, honest to God, kind of anything, right? You get a move enabler, you're pretty happy. You get a Mystique or Cosmo. Like, getting a Cosmo beat a Hella list for me earlier. There's lots of options for this list. Alright, so this is won an Infinity ticket, and then I played it in Conquest and immediately got a gold ticket. So this is a legit list. Turn 1, you pass almost always, because you don't have Aranya, which is part of why I want to add her. Turn 2, you want Ravonna over Madam Web over Craven. After Ravonna, you can then play Madam Web and set up a move, or you can play Madam Web and Mystique. Madam Web and Mystique is incredible if you have 2 movers. Because at that point, you go turn 3 Madam Web Mystique, turn 4 Dagger in 1, Human Torch in 1, or I guess you can't Vulture and Torch. Oh yeah, you can Vulture and Torch, but you can't Dagger and Vulture. So whichever of those 2 you have, and then you just start flipping them back and forth every turn, making them huge, and then you drop an Iron Man on 1, and then you win. Like, it's super simple. It's really, really strong. So that is a one play pattern. The other thing you can do is you can just drop Madam Web at that point with whatever mover you can, or Madam Web in one lane and Craven in another lane, and just even making Craven like a 6 or an 8 power card when you have Iron Man in the list is pretty damn good. Turn 4, if you've got Iron Man excess, drop Iron Man. If you can play the 2 movers, play the 2 movers. Iron Lad is perfectly fine here as well. If you played Iron Man on turn 4, you want to Mystique it on turn 5. Again, Mystique might have already happened. If not, you're going movers or Cosmo. And then turn 6, you're doing the last of your movers to try and bounce some power everywhere. Don't forget that you can move Cosmo to mess with opponents. And if you play it on Madam Web. And if not, you can go Iron Man or Iron Lad and Mystique if you haven't played them yet, which is just crazy strong. Iron Lad and Mystique, you hit Iron Man, Mystique hits, copies that, you're in heaven. You Iron Man Mystique, you've just doubled your power in 2 lanes, and then you should be able to win. That's it. List very powerful, very simple, very strong. Give it some go. There is a list. I'm telling you, there's a list of this that runs multiple man and Aranya and so on, and we just have to figure out what it is. But like that list exists. I'm gonna bug somebody and try and get them to put it together. But I'm telling you, that's a real list that like exists. The version of this that runs multiple man, and then you just double all your like fake Phoenix 4C multiple man stuff with Iron Man and Mystique, and you go to town. We just got to figure out what the exact mix of those cards are. However, for the time being, this list is incredible, particularly in Conquest, because you can just sort of like retreat for little bits until you see your combos. Then when you see your combos, you put up so much power, there ain't much opponents can do. Awesome list. Props to John Poole, and welcome to being on the channel, John Poole. Questions of the day, and this is going to be a big one. Fair warning, everyone. First, Juan F. Cerda asks for Spanish language streamers. So my faves are Tio Justin, Bohe, and Dubos. But if you have any more in chat, please let me know. 2 of those 3 often stream at least somewhat in English, which is how I know them. I'm a monolingual, which sucks because my mom's Dominican. When I was a kid, she used me to learn English, and it did something to my brain, and it's made it very, very difficult for me to learn any other languages. Royally sucks, as I'd very much like to know Spanish, but I don't. And I've studied it multiple times, and it's actually been like one of the banes of my life. It's not easy for me to pick up on it. But Bohe and Tubos speak a lot of English on their stream, but they are Spanish speakers who are amazing Marvel Snap streamers. So is Tio Justin. Lufku9 is another streamer who knows Spanish. He's from Spain, I believe, but he streams in English almost exclusively. Models asks which card has the most good variants in sheer volume. So I went and counted. I literally clicked through like 50 Marvel Snap cards. Common Wisdom is correct here. Storm has like 17 good variants, which is insane. Then we go Black Panther, has a ton, next most. Then Moon Knight, Galactus, and Magneto. And Magneto has barely more than Doom. And like you can argue Captain America or Iron Man if you like a few of their variants more than I do, but I don't. So just the sheer volume of good variants. Storm wins fairly easily. Black Panther is kind of sort of close. Panther and Moon Knight are in 2-3, and then trailing behind are Galactus and Magneto as far as best cards with the most awesome variants in Marvel Snap. Ryan Wood asks if I prefer sci-fi or fantasy, and my favorite of each. The answer has always been fantasy for me. I like fantasy better. I don't know why, but I always have. But I do have a ton of favorites from each. I'm not like well, okay. I think I like fantasy better because fantasy had a bigger impact on my childhood. And while I like both relatively equally as adults, since one has the longevity in my heart, I like it more. All right, so my favorite sci-fi, and we're gonna do sort of all genres because it wasn't asked for books. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is like one of my favorite book series ever. I just reread it this year. It remains brilliant and hilarious and insightful. Blade Runner is one of my favorite movies, although I really need to watch it again because it's been it was pre-COVID last time I saw it, and everything from pre-COVID, my brain doesn't work anymore. I also read Neuromancer to an ex while she had to read it for some college class, so that'll always have a special place in my heart. Brave New World remains one of my favorite books ever. I think Brave New World is utterly brilliant. Um, Everyone talks about 1984. Everyone talks about Fahrenheit. I like Brave New World significantly more. Saga is an amazing comic, but not my favorite sci-fi comic. That is Transmetropolitan. Transmetropolitan is I don't have the right word for it. Messy. Yeah, I think messy is the word I'd go with. I'm not sure if I recommend it to people, but I think it's in a very real way. Like, it speaks very honestly about people and very crudely about people. And while the protagonist is meant to be sort of a feet of clay hero, I think the writer Warren Ellis, who's problematic in his own ways, um, likes him too much and doesn't let him be terrible nearly enough. We're meant to identify. He thinks he's too cool, and I think he has to be a little more terrible for the book. But the things it says about society are genuinely brilliant. Cowboy Bebop is probably my favorite anime ever. Although my other favorite anime is Rurouni Kenshin. Again, problematic author, I don't tell you. But my other favorite anime is probably Rurouni Kenshin, particularly season 2 of Rurouni Kenshin, wherein that's a fantasy anime, right? And then one of my favorite games, I like far fewer sci-fi games than anything else, is 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. It is brilliant. It's one of the best sci-fi experiences I've ever had. As far as favorite fantasy, Babel is currently fighting with The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde for my favorite book. I just really loved it, and I keep thinking about it. It occupies space in my brain. The Princess Bride is one of my favorite movies. It's also one of my favorite books. That book is brilliant. If you've only ever seen the movie, you owe it to yourself to read the book. The book is every bit as good. Check it out. Stardust is likewise fantastic. If we count Good Omens as fantasy, and I think I do, then Good Omens belongs here too. Um, Stardust by Neil Gaiman feels like The Princess Bride. It feels like his take on The Princess Bride, and it's excellent. I think the movie's actually a little bit better than the book. If you have access to both, check out the movie. Uh, I really, really, really love a lot of Remedy Feist's Magician series. I don't actually love the Magician books themselves, but there's a lot of like one shots about the humans that surround the magic stuff, and like the betrayal at Condor, the Silverthorn stuff. That's some of my favorite fantasy stuff ever. Like, I think it's brilliant and it's really interesting and it's really well written and it's really fun, even if it's sort of just like, I don't know, a D&D campaign, but a D&D campaign, but a book. I don't know. I loved Baldur's Gate 3 as much as I played it, so I like Magician really speaks to me. Romance of the Three Kingdoms is brilliant and phenomenal. It's a Chinese novel of that has a bajillion video games about it, but I read the whole bajillion page novel series and absolutely adored it. I think it's great. I played an online Romance of the Three Kingdoms game at romanceofthetreekingdoms.net for like 5 years in my early 20s. Very fun, but like wild. Almost every JRPG is fantasy at its core. Some like Chrono Trigger, some of my favorites like Chrono Trigger, and now the name of this other one is just gone from me. But it's a DS and 3DS game, and it's centered on time travel. And now the name is Radiant Historia. Radiant Historia is brilliant. Chrono Trigger is brilliant. Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy Tactics. JRPGs are my favorite genre. Fantasy JRPGs are my favorite type of JRPG. I don't love sci-fi in my JRPGs, but I don't mind a splash of it, right? Like Xenoblade 1 had the right amount of fantasy for me, while Xenoblade 3 went a little too sci-fi and it put me off. I think part of my aversion to sci-fi is I very really like it in video games. My favorite podcast, maybe my favorite podcast ever. One of my favorite podcasts ever is the original The Adventure Zone, which is my brother and me podcasters doing Dungeons and Dragons. They've done lots of other ones at this point. They finished their first big story, their first big D&D campaign. They've done like I think 4 or 5 stories at this point. I didn't get into the other ones. I absolutely adore the Adventure Zone. We have to talk Lord of the Rings, which was incredibly pivotal to me in like 7th grade. Um, I don't love Lord of the Rings. I don't think I can reread it now. I've tried and it doesn't work. But for whatever reason, I really like the Silmarillion as like a big mythology thing. I think it's brilliant and it's super fun. I think The Hobbit is a piece of trash. And I don't love it, but I like the Stormlight Archive. Um, and I look forward to each new book, even though I know there's no guarantee I'll like it. The Name of the Wind series would be here, except only the first book was any good, and I need to read The Night Circus. Game of Thrones was incredibly formative for me and pivotal. I didn't read it until I was like 30, but right before the series came out, I read all the books that were out at the time. And yeah, it was. I played a Game of Thrones card game for like 5 or 6 years. So Thrones and Thrones discourse was a major part of my life. Um, I can't stand George R. R. Martin's style anymore. I think it's juvenile and it uses a lot of shock value for the sake of shock value. And I wish um it does this thing that I don't enjoy, where like the best women are just men, or like it's just I don't, or like they're all angels and perfect. And I don't know. I'm not a really big fan of Thrones at this point in my life. I'll probably not even read the last book, and I don't watch House of the Dragon, but I have to mention Thrones. Um, Harry Potter is bad. I don't know what else to say except like, I mean, like from just a writing perspective, it's not well written. It's fun though, and my wife really loves it. And there was a point in my son's youth, maybe he's 8, so he's not like old, where they were having trouble connecting, and she read Harry Potter to him, and it really helped them bond and really helped them become closer. So I'll always have a warmth for that. But like the writing is very bad. I read it in college, or at the end of college. The first few books were out, uh, 2002 ish, because a girl I was talking to was really into it and like insisted, and I was like, sure. And then once I read it, I was like, well, this is at least easy to read. So I read a whole bunch of the books. I think some of them are good, some of them are bad, as far as plotting goes, but the writing is so bad. She's not a good writer. And then Sword of Truth by Terry Goodkind is objectivist crap. I don't know how else to put that, but I read it again when I was in like 8th grade, when my stepfather's mother was in the hospital. The hospital library had it, and the book had a big dragon on it, and I loved it. And I read the whole original Sword of Truth series, and it'll always have a warm place in my heart. I think its love of humanity is really admirable, and it has some really great insights into humanity. And its political messages are absolutely abhorrent, and it's got a lot of weird kink in it. So I don't suggest anyone read it, but it'll always have a special place in my heart. Told you this was going long today, y'all. Sorry. All right, because that went so long, let's rush the Patreon list. Certain tiers of support on our Patreon come with on-air thanks. I'd like to say thank you to Abigail Giesland, Mandatory Burnout, Cables, Irregardless, David G. Wingfield, Direwolf, LAB, Always Kind, FaThorNewman, Good Dog Gamer, Inc., I Am Frostman, Jane Everett, Corwin, Prime Ryan, who sponsored Snapchat League Season 2 and has an awesome app called Prime Mind you should check out, Kira Tixley, Ryan Burke, Koi Ray, Black Dahlia, Pyrofros, The Goat Seeker, Den Man Falcon, who competed awesomely in that tournament we talked about yesterday, Archangel 3K, Archangel 3K, Quid Pro Joe, Docty, the king of new Marvel Snap card content, Rat Nick, Mr. Kerfuffle, Ginger Prime, Philip Ratkovich, Haplo, Kenny Loggins of The Danger Zone, Rob Silverman, The Bizza, X-Force V, and Skippy G, Tommy Nyquist, who won Snapchat League Season 1, King of Bros, bruh, The Great Kazoo, Jessica Gamble, hey Jess, Woody, Kevsey Hoda, Luna Chris, Quantum Quinn, John Q, and Jimmy McHugh were in Q-Town, Clam, 8th Sage, how wise, Mott Supreme Models, the one and only Darth Vader, Nojo K, Joe P, Brian Kaufman, Tristan H. Martin, and Jason B, Real Name Town, J.D. McDonaldino, The Fuzzy Dunlop, Spectrum Mix, Hoot, Matt H, DJ, Mikey Hijinks, No Frickin' Flex, Ocularis, Mr. Craig Sterry, Seamus, Jonesy, Two Ties, The Great Lauren Bedevs, The Pirate King Tucker, The Hoyman, and of course, Gunny T, where the T stands for. Tomorrow, I will try to bring you some more awesome decks. I hope Scarlet Spider is good, because we could really use a meta shakeup. At least there's an OTA Thursday. What you should be seeing right now is 2 videos. One of those videos is the about Pokemon with my son. I think it's cute. It's 6 minutes. You should give it a watch. One is the Scarlet Spider big breakdown for any of you who are considering getting that new card. It's got all my advice and stuff in that. Also, right below me is that sub button, so if you're willing to hit it, it would mean the world to me. Hopefully, you win a season pass as well, and I'll see you tomorrow for another Snap Take. Peace.